My guest is the Country Director, Department for International Trade for the UK government's Chim Chalemera. She's been in Nigeria 3 years. That went by so fast as she heads on to another assignment. Chim has worked in a variety of roles on public and private sector projects, including development and humanitarian work, providing a range of commercial and advisory services. And before her time in Nigeria, she was growth advisor for the UK Department for International Development, and before that, worked in the private sector for 15 years. She talks some more about her time in Nigeria, the UK's development plans for Nigeria, and where she's headed next. Chim Chalemera, thank you so much for speaking with us on Diplomatic Channel. And you've been in Nigeria for 3 years, 3 wonderful, delightful years. I'm sure the country has adopted you as its own. Do you feel like, we really have adopted you as Nigerian?
I've always tried to be myself, and I think coming to Nigeria has felt like just coming home. It's the country, the people have really welcomed me. They've embraced me as one of their own, which I'm truly, truly humbled. Because for those who might not know, I'm actually of Malawian descent. Although a number of Nigerians believe that I should have been Nigerian. So I have adopted Anambra as my state. And to be more authentic, they said, no, you need a local government area. So Alo is my adopted LGA. But yeah, I've felt so welcome here, and Nigeria has truly left a mark in my heart. And I will be back. I will be back.
You're one of the few British officials who has seen pre-election, post-election, pre-election, election, and then post-election in Nigeria. And I'm not going to talk about the politics, because you're not supposed to comment on that. But with the transitions came changes in business and in economy. What kind of changes have you seen, and what are your thoughts on them?
So I've been quite fortunate to have seen that transition. You've mentioned pre-elections, during the elections, and now in the post-election period. And there have been quite a number of bold economic steps that His Excellency President Tinubu has taken. And they have had an interesting impact in terms of the response from the business community. The reforms have been bold. So we've obviously seen the removal of the fuel subsidy, the unifying of the exchange rate, and a few other sort of tightening of monetary policy, which I think has been sending the right signals, certainly in the City of London, in terms of investors and investor appetite to come into Nigeria. I know that the reforms have been quite difficult for the ordinary man and woman in Nigeria. But I believe that in the long term, in the next few years, we shall start to see the economic growth and trajectory of Nigeria increase. So on that aspect, I believe from a business, trade, and investment perspective, the reforms are taking the country in the right direction. And it'll be a few years before we start to see the fruits materialize.
But how much confidence does the UK government have in Nigeria's economy? When you look at, major corporations and big organizations leaving the country in the last at least 1 year, a number of really big corporations have left Nigeria.
So from the feedback that we've had from businesses, the challenges have been over a number of years. So the challenges that businesses have experienced are only coming to fruition now, which is why you have some businesses choosing to disinvest, but we still have a number of other investors still interested in Nigeria, still interested because they see the changes, they see the commitment from government to make those changes, and they're willing to come in and invest in the country. So some of the impacts and effects are things that have probably accumulated over a number of years.
So you think those companies could come back?
I can't speak for them. I would like to hope that they will, because we certainly have seen an improvement. We've seen an increase in the trade that's happening and in the investment that's happening in Nigeria. So I'd like to think that we are on the right trajectory when it comes to investment, when it comes to business, when it comes to trade.
Well, 4 months ago, the UK Minister for Business and Trade, Kemi Badenoch, was here with Helen Grant for a meeting that was aimed at strengthening UK-Nigeria partnership, which is already worth £7 billion. One of the reasons she was here was to sign the ETIP, the Enhanced Trade and Investment Partnership, a first for the UK with any African country. Nigeria is so lucky to be the first that you'll be signing this partnership with. What's the progress so far on this?
Yeah, so maybe just to take it back to the visit itself. So the primary reason for that visit was to sign the ETIP and to launch the ETIP, the Enhanced Trade and Investment Partnership. And our Secretary of State, Right Honourable Kemi Badenoch, was here, as you rightly said, together with the Trade Envoy to Nigeria, Ms. Helen Grant. And interestingly, both women of Nigerian descent. So, they have been the powerhouse in getting the ETIP over the line. And since February, what we have been doing is really working on establishing the working groups. So we're looking to co-create working groups that will have representation from Nigerian side as well as from the UK side. And the idea is those working groups will essentially provide that framework for tackling some of the market access issues that both Nigerian businesses and UK businesses have been facing. So that's where we are at the moment, is putting in place those technical working groups to start addressing those specific challenges and issues that the businesses from both Nigeria and the UK have been informing us about.
So I'm thinking, most Nigerian businesses that are hearing this are thinking that this is just on the level of governments. How does this trickle down to business owners?
The ETIP itself is the MOU. It's a non-legal document, and what it provides is a framework to start those discussions, to start addressing and dealing with the issues that businesses are facing. So how that trickles down, we have, for example, a desire within the ETIP to tackle some of the specific sector challenges. So this could be looking at, as an example, the creative sector. How do we foster more collaboration for UK and Nigerian filmmakers, as an example? You look at the education sector. Last year, the transnational education guidelines were launched. And what that means is UK institutions and Nigerian institutions or universities can collaborate and partner more. And there are different models in which this can happen. You look at the agriculture sector as an example. How do we support commercial farmers here in Nigeria or agro-processing entities to export more to the UK? So the ETIP will essentially provide that foundation, that framework to enable those businesses in the sectors that I mentioned and other sectors as well. So we had clean energy, tech, the financial and financial services sector, to tap into the working groups and address the challenges that they're facing. So it could be something as simple as taxations. How do we get Nigerian exporters to export to the UK and taking advantage of lower tariffs? So we've got this developing countries trading scheme, which essentially we're a year in, and it's a UK government initiative, probably one of the most generous trading schemes in the world. Nigeria is part of that. And through the DCTS, what we're hoping to see is a lot more Nigerian exporters taking advantage of those tariff-free goods and services that sit under the DCTS. So for Nigeria, we've got over 3,000 products that can enter the UK duty-free. That just to kind of put it into perspective, is almost 99% of Nigerian exports into the UK entering duty-free. So through initiatives like that, with the ETIP kind of underpinning and providing that support, what we're hoping is exporters taking advantage.
So I also see that the ETIP will open up opportunities for UK and Nigerian lawyers. Could you speak a bit more about this?
Yes, so the ETIP actually covers a number of different sectors. The legal services is just one of those sectors. So we have financial services. I mentioned earlier about the creatives, looking at opportunities in innovation and investment in the tech sector, for example, and also other sectors like the education sector. I mentioned the transnational education guidelines. With the legal services, this is almost a continuation of what we had under the previous agreement. So prior to ETIP, we had the Economic Development Forum. So that was, again, our bilateral tool to address some of the market access challenges and barriers. And under that, we had a legal services working group, co-created, co-chaired, UK and Nigeria. And the idea was to address some of the issues that Nigerian lawyers face when trying to do business or set up in the UK. And similarly, what are the challenges that UK lawyers are facing when trying to do business with Nigeria? And the idea behind the legal services working group was really to foster more collaboration and partnership between Nigerian and UK lawyers and just exploit a number of opportunities that, if they're working together, you're more likely to do more.
If it is that clear, on your website, I'm wondering why the Nigerian House of Representatives has urged the halt in the signing and implementation of the trade partnership, because according to them, it appears lopsided and tilted mainly in favor of the UK to the detriment of qualified Nigerian lawyers.
So I would disagree with the fact that it's lopsided. I mentioned earlier that this document, this MOU, was co-created. So everything that is within the MOU is available online. And I would urge people to, go onto the website, have a look at the document. All the annexes are there and there is no lopsidedness. It was a mutually created agreement. And yeah, I'd encourage those that feel that maybe it might be lopsided to just have a look at the MOU itself.
The current trade volume between the UK and Nigeria is £7 billion. What's the target?
The sky's the limit, right? So £7 billion has been the highest, I think, if I'm not mistaken, certainly in the last 10 years, even pre-COVID. So 3 years ago, so when I arrived in Nigeria, we were looking at trade figures of about, I think it was about 3.5 billion. So we've almost doubled the trade figures in the last 3 years. And what I'm particularly proud of is it's relatively balanced. So normally you have a lopsided balance of trades where perhaps, if I give the example of UK and Nigeria, you might see substantially more exports coming from the UK into Nigeria. In the case of our respective trade figures, what we're seeing is it's relatively balanced, maybe slightly tilted towards the UK. So we have about £4 billion worth of exports coming from the UK into Nigeria and about 3 billion from Nigeria into the UK. So to answer your question, we've almost doubled in the last 3 years. Let's double it again. I'm always of the view of trying, doing more. And I think with tools like the DCTS, we also have the Growth Gateway program, which essentially provides support to Nigerian businesses, Nigerian and other countries who are looking to do business in the UK. So really making the most of all these tools, all these programs, all the support that's available. I'd like to say, I'd like to see a substantial increase in the amount of trade that we're doing.
3 years spent in Nigeria, you're on to your next assignment. Where are you headed?
So I'm going where I first started. So I'm actually going to South Africa. So I'll be in Johannesburg, doing a regional role So I'm really excited about that. Really sad about leaving Nigeria. I've enjoyed my time here. It's a country that's close to my heart now. I've made friends. I've made a wealth of contacts and connections that I will use for my next role as well. But I will be heading to Johannesburg to do a regional role, similar to what a promotion. So I'll be covering a lot more in the region, in addition to South Africa.
Yes, but I will say you will not get Nigerian jollof rice as good as you would have it here in Nigeria.
I will try my best to find it.
Well, Chim, it's been a real pleasure speaking with you. Wish you all of the best in your next endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amarachi. Thank you for having me. And I will be back, as I said.